Morning, welcome back to Life of Dave. I just popped down the boat and unfortunately just realised I got here, I forgot my overalls and my old boots. So, damn it, I'll try not to get too messed up today. But we've got some sanding to do, a couple of bits to sort out on the hatches, a little bit of glass. We'll get over there in a minute and crack on. Cup of coffee first and then go and see what we're going to do. Well, good morning, welcome back to Life of Dave. I've just nipped down the boat again, Tuesday, so I've got a little bit more time today. Unfortunately, I ain't geared up for it. So, I've got no overalls, and I've got my good trainers on. So, I've got to kind of be a bit careful what I'm doing today, and how I'm going about it. I don't want to get covered in crap and get it all in my car. It's going to make a right mess everywhere. Yeah, it's just, what a wally. I cleared the car out, I took all my stuff out, doing other things. Didn't put it all back in to come back down here, so my own fault, never mind. So I had some running around to do this morning, a few errands and bits to do. Went and picked up some more acetone because I was running low. I have got a fair bit left, it's about a quarter or something. It's not a lot, it's not going to last long. And what I don't want to do is run out and I can't do anything else, you know. So I thought I'd rather have some sitting there ready and waiting for when I need it than run out and, I'm stuck. Right, so we filled this last time we were down. So that bit there where you can see that glass there is nice and smooth. So it's done what I wanted, it's got rid of that edge. So all I've got to do now is flat back all the ridgy peaks and all that you get when you're spreading filler and muck about. And that bit in there just needs a hoover out, acetone and the gel coating. So that one there is all done. So I'm not going to do anything inside this one. There's a little fuzzy bit in the front there, just along this back edge there. Over there, but it's so minor. I was anticipating that I would see a bit of a join in the back of the lockers. I didn't want it as bad as this one come out though. I was quite disappointed with that. When that one come out quite well, I'm really pleased with how that one has turned out. So that's how I want them. So now what I've got to do is finish sanding in here. I've got to drill the hinges and get them to fit in here, and I'm hoping that where the holes go through they won't come through into the bottom. This radius is really thick. I've not got a lot of room, down the back of here to come through with the bolts and out the other side, because this one is the one that I mucked up. This one, however, this is nice and hollow in there. It's a good even consistency, and I'll be able to bolt through there no problem, I don't think so. But this one, could give me issues getting a nut on the inside of there, depending on where that hole comes through. It's going to be real close to the bottom edge. It's really thick there where I've had to build this out. So I'm anticipating that's going to cause me issues. If it does, it really is going to be a major setback. I don't know how I'm going to address that. The only other way I could do it is find some bolts with the same head as this ones that I've brought, but with a screw thread, so I can screw it in. That could be an option, so I could screw into it rather than nut and bolting it. That's an option, but let's see if I can find something to do that with. Right, so for now what I've got to do is some sanding as usual. I'm not going to record all of that because it's just sanding, so I'm just going to show you a little bit of start, cut it all out, and then show you what it looks like when I've finished it. Once that's done, it's ready for gel coating. I'm not going to mix up the gel coat until I've done the rest of that or under there. Because basically I've got to glass in the underside of this, tabbing this to the hull. So until I've done that, I'm not going to be mixing up any gel coat. I can gel coat that in one go then, so I'll get that all glassed on, let it tack up, and then gel coat it, and then I haven't got to get into that corner. I've only got to sand the edge bit where I'm going to then paint down there. So once I blend this lot down, I'll do that. But I'll get that bit painted in there underneath. It doesn't matter, it won't need doing again once that's done. That's finished. Inside the lockers will be gel coated then, and they're finished, so all it's going to need is hoovering out and getting rid of the dust basically. So really want to get that one done today. That's my plan, but I've got to finish what I'm doing. I don't want to start extra work and I'm still working on these because they're just doing me head in. They're going on for so long, there's so much to do, and every time I do a little bit I end up having to do something else. It's like drives you nuts. I've got to clean my spreader up from last time as well. Now usually, if you're lucky, most of it will pop off because it doesn't stick to the plastic. And in the same way that doesn't stick to the plastic, this is what will happen if you fill your nice little side there and you haven't prepped this up and keyed it properly. Say that was, you gel coated over there and then decided that, oh, I'm going to put a bit more filler on there. That filler isn't going to stick to that, and what's going to happen is that's going to pop off and that filler will just ping out of there. And that is why I'm doing so much sanding on this boat, because I'm sanding between all the layers. So every time I do something and I have to stop and it's set up and I come back next time and I want to put another layer on, it needs sanding. It's got to be all sanded down and keyed up so that I can put the next layer on. Otherwise it's going to ping off just like the filler off of there. So hence why I'm sanding everything so much and trying to do everything properly as well as I can. I don't want to be looking at this in 6 months' time and thinking, why is that peeling off of there? I don't mean 6 months' time. I mean 6 months after I've finished it all and I've got it all done and it's all working and on the water and wired up and everything else. I've got so much to do, it is untrue. I've got to finish what I'm doing here, building these lockers. I've got to build lockers on the other side. I've got to get the underside of the deck sanded and painted, gel coated. That's all got to be finished still. Then work my way down, and last thing to do will be the floor, because that is now covered in crud and resin and bits and pieces and all the rest of it, as you can imagine. I've just been letting it all drip on the floor, so that'll all need taking care of. I'm worried about that for now, so that'll be the last thing. So there's still plenty of work to do, absolutely loads. So once I've done all the body work, I've got all the wiring and stuff to do, and I've got ancillaries to fit and things, more things to buy, I dare say. I've got a hatch to go in, all this to sand, fair the rest of it, sand it, fair it, sand it, and then get that all looking like this, ready for gel coat. Get this all faired, ready for gel coat. So this is pretty much done, but it'll just need, like I've done on here, a thin scrape of fairing compound over the whole thing, just to transition it in, lose any little pit marks, all the rest of it. No build up at all, just a thin smear, fill in all these little pitty looking bits in the glass, and then sand it all down. And once that's done, then it's ready for gel coating. So that will be this side completely done. Get this side all done at the top and work my way across. Basically working around the boat a bit at a time. Right, anyway, shut me waffling. Let's get on with some sanding. So when I put this in there, I was trying not to get too much build up at all. But obviously when you can't get your head in there and see what you're doing, it's very difficult. I've got a little bit of a ridge built up in the end here. But turn that heater off now, warming up. I was trying to avoid getting any into the corner, because obviously corners are really hard to sand. But obviously wiping a spreader in there blind, it's kind of impossible to not whack it all over the place. So I was sanding the way down now, and I was wondering what these little red spots are on the side here. Well, that's the blood coming off my knuckles where I'm in there sanding, and the little peaks of the filler are scraping me knuckles. I'm going to knock that down first before I do anything else. Creates a lot of dust, all that sanding. That's why it's important to wear a respirator. Not just one of them cheap paper ones. I mean, if that's all you've got, it's better than nothing, but if you're planning your job properly, you know, budget in a proper respirator. And if it's a long project, don't forget, you know, you'll need more than one. They'll get clogged with dust and all the rest of it, and get to a point where they're just knackered and you need a new one. I can imagine stateside they're probably between $20 to $30. You know, I know over here they vary from about £17 to about £25, depending on which one you buy. Obviously there's zero ones, but unless you're doing it as a full-time job, you're probably not going to spend that sort of money. But it is your health you're dealing with. You know, you don't want to be breathing this stuff in. It's not good for you. Nearly there. I've got rid of that little bit in the middle. I've got a little edge there I want to get rid of. I think that the back edge here feels pretty good. Not worth filming the back of my elbow. Now, this filler's still really hard to sand because I can't get in there with a block or anything like that. I've just got to do it a little bit at a time by hand, how I can, you know, because of the shape of it. It's not flat or anything like that, so it's really awkward. This is why I really didn't want to get too much of a build up. I'd say it's a little bit thicker than I wanted, but it was really awkward to get to. But now what I'm left with is I've got to flat it properly, because otherwise, to get rid of these lines, I'll just introduce others. So in the filler, there'll be all pits and voids. That will look worse than having the line from the fiberglass. So it's got to be sanded properly. I've got to take care of it. It's all got to be done. I've got no choice, you know. Just got to, bit at a time, work my way through it. It's really awkward. You can't get a good angle to go at it, like, you know, and knock it back quick. It is what it is. I've just got to carry on until it's done. I'm nearly done now. This is all sanded. I've sanded in the bottom there, all down that end. I've got a little bit up this end. I've got an edge on the filler just in there. And basically there's no point swapping an edge on the fiberglass for an edge on the filler. You know, it's all got to be flush. Just feather that edge out. So I can't see in there very well other than the bit straight in front of me. You can have a peek around the corner a bit, but you can only see so much. So visual where I can see there, but the rest of it I've got to do by feel. So you've got to clean it out, run your hand around it, all directions, checking, and you're feeling for any sort of edge that stands out. Anything uneven that you haven't sanded and missed a bit. Little bit sticking up at the moment, feels quite good for that. Right, so that needs hoovering out and gel coating now. That's done. So I'm happy with that. We've sanded that back. It's hidden this ridge that was there on the glass. That bit there, you can see the glass, but it's actually smooth. Now, I'm not going to worry about right into the corners. You know, I mean, you're not going to see them. You can't really feel it. You're not going to be running your hands in there. They are good enough. So that is done now. I can crack on with something that was all sanded. Ready for a bit of gel coat when I do the other one. It's already nearly 12 o'clock. I've lost half the day, you know, doing other stuff this morning. So I don't know if I'm going to get time to do any glassing on that end locker. But what I do need to do is I need to clean these holes out. So what I'm going to do is just drill out what's there. So last week we sanded them all down so that they're scooped out a little bit. But these holes are all wrong, you know, so I've got to clean out. There's a load of dust and whatnot in there. It's actually set like filler, that dust. It's quite hard. But that's no good in there. So I've got to clean all that out. And the easiest way of doing that is with the drill. Mind your fingers on the back. Once we've drilled these out, I can acetone this up. Them two didn't go right through. The only problem with it not going right through is what happens if you try and fill it with filler. You quite often get like an air bubble in there. So I think I'm going to go right through that way. I'm going to squidge it right through from both sides. That way I won't get any sort of air trapped in the middle. That's those all cleaned out. That takes care of the holes. If I can't get my glassing done, then what I want to do is at least try and get these hatches finished. Once these are done, you know, I can move on to the next one without having 7 different things started at once. Number 1. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So now we've got to fill these holes. So I've got no overalls today, so I'm trying not to do. Oh, trying not to get in a mess. I've got to get back in my car to go home. I'm not going to need a lot of filler for these. Quite small. Mixing up filler is quite hard to do small amounts, not very small amounts. So if I mix this and it sets instantly, we know that was too much. About 5 drops on that. It's only a tiny little bit. It doesn't need a lot, but I do want to make sure it does go off. You know. Now this stuff's like a bluey colour, and once you add the catalyst and start mixing it up, it goes like a grey colour. I did have a huge tin of this. It was a 5 kilo. It's nearly empty, so it gets towards the bottom and it's starting to get a bit claggy. Yeah, you know, some of the bits are going off in the tin. Pull them out. Probably should throw it away, but I'm only using it for little bits at the moment. It's just mixing in. As long as it goes off, it's fine. I've not had any problems with it setting up. It's definitely still strong and doing what it's supposed to. Right, so I don't want to build up anything in the dish that I've scalloped out. I only want to fill the holes up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that into there, and that's going to come out the back. I'll push it in one side and it oozes out the other. See? Got the sun on the camera, you can see that. Once it's coming out the other side, I know they're filled and there's no air in there. That little scrape off. I'm going to put some glass in there, so I don't want any build up with the filler end side there. I want that. I want that. So I'll take off any excess now. So I'm really not going to need a lot of material at all in this. It is just going to fill those holes. Not going to have any build up on the surface. I'll scrape that out. I'll only build up on this edge because that will affect me door gap. I'll sand it to shape and all the rest of it. So I'm just scraping that off. You'll always get a little bit that when you run the spread this way, you get a build up on that side. When you run it that way, you'll get a build up come off of this side. You know, that's just part of the parcel when you're fillering. So I'm going to leave that wet, and then I'm going to knock up a little bit of glass and dab that in. Alright, same on the other one. Push that into the holes. So it doesn't take a lot, these are tiny little holes. Once you've done that, it should come out the other side. Wipe that off. Scrape it off, I don't want any build up. So I just want the holes filled. Beautiful. Next one, same process, nothing different. I'll say these holes are all in the wrong place, so they've got to be filled. Now I don't want them just filled because that could break out. And when I drill the new holes, they're going to be just above them, so yeah, you'll end up, it'll drag through into there.
And I know what will happen is the holes will elongate into the old holes. I don't want that, so I'm going to take care of them now whilst we can. So, far more than I needed to mix up, but it's really hard to knock up such a small amount. Go in both directions, yeah, work it in, make sure it's not got any voids. Quick check of both sides, and that one's done. Alright, last bit. There we go. Right, that's all done. They're all covered. Drilled out, acetone, all cleaned up, fillered. Too much. But that was always going to happen, wasn't it? Filling 6 little holes like that. I might be able to use that elsewhere in a moat. We'll see. Have a look at this end locker and see what the situation is, because it's been a while since I looked in here. Right, so that's not ready for glassing yet. It's not been sanded. There's a big lip there. So that needs a lot of sanding first before I can glass that in place. Damn it, which means I'm probably not going to get a chance to glass that today. Which is what I really wanted to come down and do on Tuesdays, is get on with the glassing, because Sunday mornings I don't have enough time. But today I've had other stuff to do this morning, which now means I haven't got enough time. so I still can't glass it in. I just need to glass this lot in, get it all done. It all needs to be sanded. There's a big lump there on the back side of this, probably a lump of the filler bonding paste. That's all it can be. It can't be nothing else. Not glassed in there yet. Ha-ha! Gotcha. That's better. Now I can just sand that flat. Where I bonded in the 2 halves and put the divider in between them. Must have smeared a lump of stuff in there up the side. That's better. I'll sand that out. Yeah, so that needs sanding. So the outside's probably ready for glassing. But there's not much point doing that until I start that bit. Especially when I've got bonding paste to sand. This stuff's quite hard. I've got to sand that down, lose that edge. Then I'm going to have to smear a little bit more over it before I glass it all in, just to lose any little clips and voids that might be lurking in that, or will be lurking in that. That's not bad. The end there needs taken care of. And this locker's even tighter than the others. One, it's awkward to get to at the front, and two, it's not as deep, it tapers in the front of the boat, so it's quite awkward to get to and get in there. Honestly, can't be bothered with this today. Sanding, it's just too much. I think I've got to get these locker hatches glassed. I want to do that, so I'll spread my remaining little bit of bonding paste over this area here on that hinge. So I built this up with glass, so I've just put a tiny little smear of this over the top just to fill in any clips, because what was happening, I think I built it up with glass and it felt good. I think I've got the height and everything else right, but by the time I sanded it flat to lose the lines and just feather it in at the edges, and that took it back down enough that I'd half the thickness of the glass and took away the meat that I needed there, you know. So I've just built it up again with a little bit of this pudding, that filler over the top. It's really thin, it's not a lot at all really. So then I can just taper off each edge, round it underneath, and just flat that gently along the front, and then try me hatch on there with the hinges and see how that fits. Hopefully that should do it. Just bringing that hinge out a little bit so that it sits flush this side will stop it kicking out at the top on the other side. And hopefully that's me done with the adjustments on that hatch then. The only other thing I've done is I've spread a tiny little bit more in this top corner without going into this bit here, because that's a nightmare to sand. Just to bring that out a little bit, so a little bit of clean up with a bit of paper afterwards should sort that out as well. This one's done, the hatch hole's pretty good. This one, the hatch hole's a little bit rough and wobbly looking around there. Don't know what happened there. Oh, I do know what happened, I'll probably rush cutting it out. Same this end, so I need to smooth these round and sand all this out. So that's what I'm going to do. That's enough filming of the sanding, so I'm going to come back when I've done a bit more. I'm going to knock up some glass. I was hoping to knock up some glass and cover this in, so I'm going to mix up some resin and glass these in instead. I think I'm going to take care of that first, to be honest. Well, I don't know what happened there, but for some reason it stopped recording. But we've basically just glassed this one up, both sides. So I filled in the hole where we had the void in the gel coat, and both the hinge areas front and back, so that's giving it some strength to re-drill my new holes in the correct position. So that's 2 done. This one's also finished now. This is number 3 of the hatches. This is probably the best one on the front, but again you can just see those holes there where we drilled through. So that will sort that out. So now I can correct my mistake with the, well, it's not a mistake, it was the different hinges. So last one now. A little bit of snotty there. Bit of glass got back into the resin. That. Hopefully I've got just enough resin here to finish this. Do this one on the other side without it going off. So once you get the resin to soak through, takes a moment, and then you'll see the PVA breaking down. Chop strand matting will sort of soften and conform to the shape that you're putting it on. So this is quite a flat part, a very small area, so it's not going to take a lot of work to get that done and get the air out. But as you can see, it's gone like opaque, like translucent. You can see through it. So you can see the repair area underneath. It looks like I've got a good fill on it so that it's higher than the surface is. So I've got a little bit there to sand. A little bit more cloth to do the other side. Put it down without tearing it apart, otherwise I end up with cloth that's half the thickness, you know. Right, just the other side to do, so let's do one. Work that out. Get this one done. Make sure I've got enough resin to do both before I start the other one. I hope I have. good. That was a good guesstimate, I'll tell you. So again, I'm just going to squeeze that resin in. Let it sit for a second, yeah, that's where you're getting the resin on. Spread it out, do one, do the other, then come back to it, you know. As that resin soaks in, it will break down the PVA in the CSM, and then that will let you work it better. You start trying to work it immediately as soon as you put the resin on, and sometimes it just doesn't want to know. There we go. So nearly there. Last bit. And that's the last of the resin. So we are pretty much done. So I'm just going to start in the centre, work my way out. Centre to the left, centre to the right, centre to the bottom, centre to the top. All directions, yeah. You can move the cloth around to make sure it's where you want it, and then tap it down. Well, so I'm not going to go right out to the edge of these wispy bits because these will sand off. I'm only doing this repair area. The more I stick down, the more I've got to sand off. Just make sure it goes right to the edge though, because you don't want to sand it away and then end up with a gap behind the glass and the part. Yeah, because that will cause separation, like, you know, it will laminate between the two surfaces. Just make sure that you've not knocked the other side, because, you know, I'm tapping this one that way. I don't want to lift this side. So once I'm happy both sides are done, I've not knocked anything off. That's all good. Right up to that edge. I'll sand that off. And that looks good. Right, I'm happy I've got no air in there. They're all on, both sides. That's done. I'll tell you, that was good. Pretty much used all of that, and it's just starting to go off. You know, it's tacking up. See that snotty bit there is it's not gone off. That's strands of glass that have got back into the resin off the brush. Sometimes you think, oh god, the resin's going already. It's not. It's just where you're working and the glass gets back into it, and it looks like it's going to jelly, but it isn't. So don't panic, it's all good. Well, there we go. So that's those three taken care of. So I've glassed both sides and the little bit where we ground out the void in the gel coat. So those are done, taken care of. So once they're set up, I can sand that down, get them to shape, and they're ready to start drilling out. I've got to sand that little bit there, that little bit there, and that's pretty much done. This is all ready to gel coat inside. I've got to finish sanding in there, so that's ready to get glassed in, and then we can glass that, gel coat it, do all of that, and go under there. But I'm just not going to get time for that today. It's 1 o'clock. I've got to go and have some lunch because I'm hungry. And then I've got to have about an hour and a half before I've got to go home, and it's going to take me most of that to get that sanded and cleaned up and sorted before I can even think about doing anything else. Then I've got a couple of glass to fit, so that's all done. And by the time I've done that, I'm not going to have time to stick it in, I don't think. But if I can get that done and ready, I might be able to come down Sunday and get it glassed in and gel coated. I'm going to knock that off there for now, and I'll come back when I've done something else. Bye for now.